There are some people now saying that Erika Kirk was an Israeli honeypot for Charlie Kirk. And I'm not going to lie, when you look at some of the details of their life and relationship, it does look a little bit suspicious. So let's first get the obvious out of the way. Erika Kirk actually admits that she saw Charlie Kirk on her first pilgrimage to Israel.
I will never forget the time I was in Israel with my husband, that was the second time, but the first time with my mother on a pilgrimage. And I was standing in the ticket line. And I remember looking behind me, and in the snake of the ticket line was a guy who looked very familiar. I had no idea who he was. And I told my mom, this guy looks so familiar. And as a typical mother, she said, go and say hi. No. We were late for our flight, and I'm not going to come off like a crazy person that's just weird. That ended up being Charlie. Nothing is by coincidence. Now, did we know that? No, not until we were like 3 months into our relationship and looking at timestamps, seeing that both of us were in Israel at the same time. But nothing is by coincidence.
But she pretends in the speech like she didn't know who he was and didn't recognize him, despite at the time Charlie Kirk being one of, if not the most popular young conservative in the world because of his campus tours with TPUSA. Yeah, so anyway, 3 months later, they were dating. And then she says that that's when they realized they just coincidentally were in Israel together. Wow. It must have been fate. Now, here's where things start getting a little bit weird. Erika Kirk, former Miss Arizona, was a multi-millionaire before she met Charlie Kirk. Now, supposedly most of these millions stemmed from a podcast and a nonprofit organization called Romanian Angels, a nonprofit organization that she created alongside her mother that ran from roughly 2011 to 2016 or 17. Now, this nonprofit organization worked alongside American soldiers, the US military, that were stationed on a NATO base nearby. And oh, by the way, all of this was done completely and totally off the books. Yeah, not suspect at all. And they worked to help orphaned little girls in Romania. Now, some of you might be asking, is Erika Romanian? No, she isn't. Is Erika Kirk's mom Romanian? No, she isn't. She's actually a Swedish immigrant. Well, Erika's dad must be Romanian. No one actually know who Erika Kirk's dad is, which probably makes all this a little bit more suspect, but I digress. So despite not having a mother connect to the military, not knowing who her father is, and not being Romanian in the least, she was able to create a nonprofit organization and get help coordinating her efforts from the US military from local NATO bases in Romania. Now, it probably doesn't hurt to mention that Romania is one of the most corrupt countries in the world, and there were some trafficking accusations that have been lobbed in the direction of not just the organization, but adoption agencies that worked alongside the organization. And yeah, these are only accusations, but I feel like they're worth mentioning considering the fact that some random girl from Arizona was able to start a nonprofit organization working along the US military, and they decided to keep everything off the books. Kinda hard to know if you were guilty of trafficking people if no one has any records of anything you did. In fact, supposedly her nonprofit was barely recognized, but it was recognized enough to work with the US military. Fast forward, she meets Charlie Kirk in Israel, doesn't recognize him, but then has a job interview with Charlie Kirk in New York very soon after. That job interview turns into a date, and then they end up married. And now, Erika Kirk, loyal to Israel, who's refused to really engage in any opinion whatsoever regarding this threatening intervention between Charlie Kirk and Bill Ackman and his Israeli donors, that Erika Kirk is now the CEO of TPUSA, $150 million+ nonprofit organization that will now be completely and totally loyal to Israel. I'm just saying, it's kind of weird how that little girl who was born in Ohio with a dad that we don't know and a mom who was supposedly not all that important ends up being Miss USA, starts a nonprofit organization in Romania, becomes a talent director, ends up in New York with a job interview with a guy that she just got done seeing in Israel, gets married to him, and then becomes the CEO of the largest conservative nonprofit organization in the world. Wow, that's really impressive, really coincidental, and really suspicious. That's all I'm saying.